Welcome to Chicago's Playbook. I'm Nicholas, and today I'm honored to be joined by Krystal Rogers, a UIC alumni, the CEO, founder of Clearview, and a force in brand building and entrepreneurship here in Chicago. A little bit about myself is that I am a Bolivian student studying CS in UIC. I've always been passionate for entrepreneurship, for business, and for leading. Ever since I was a little kid, I watched my grandpa, I watched my family, my mom, I watched them all succeed in their businesses. I watched them all lead and I watched them all be successful. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to learn from the successful people where I am right now, and that's Chicago, which is why I wanted to begin a bit local with a UIC alumni, Krystal Rogers. She has built and advised entrepreneurship, multiple startups. She has helped founders go from zero to meaningful impact. And today she's here to share her journey, her insights, and how Chicago has shaped her path. Hello, Krystal. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Nicholas. Congratulations on your first episode of Chicago's Playbook.
Thank you very much. Krystal, the first question I have for you is why do you believe I chose you to be here, and what impact do you think you'll bring to the UIC community?
I think in part, we've been having our own interactions with the AI Collective. Shout out to them. And we've been just talking a little bit. I've been sharing my journey with you, UIC alum. So there's the connection there. And as I shared about the different startup experiences I've had, what I do today, I'm also trying to support the founder journey in Chicago. I think that kind of just all came together and to an interest that you may have in what I've done and wanted to hear me share a little bit more.
Awesome. That's great. It was lovely to meet you, to be honest. I didn't expect to meet you through the AI Collective. And when I did, I was just very surprised. You're a very outgoing person, very kind person. And that's something I really admire about you, and I want you to know.
Thank you.
I want to ask you what inspired you to get into entrepreneurship and brand building in the first place? Was it something early on? Did it take place during UIC? Can you explain me that?
I can, because honestly, I never, like younger, I didn't see myself in this role, though there could have been some precursors in terms of my parents who were entrepreneurs. My father has invented things and created businesses all while being a full-time electrician. And my mother, she also worked a full-time job working with physicians and psychiatrists, while she also was an entrepreneur selling things like Avon and Queensway. So I've always seen entrepreneurship. My parents built a t-shirt business where they were screen printing and they had a storefront. And I saw all of that, but I wasn't necessarily interested in that. My path early on in education, when I was deciding what to do, I thought I might be a physical therapist. I did all of my undergraduate work for that. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but fast forward all the way to here now, it really was my entree into tech startups, which was an experience that I didn't expect, a path that I had no idea I'd be on, but it has been a true blessing and very rewarding.
That's 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 really good to hear. But you mentioned you have been doing tech startups. Do you have any background in tech?
I do. Um, Again, it was an interesting transition into tech. I kicked my work off in Chicago public schools. I guess we'll start there. Before then, I had done some work in social service organizations and nonprofits, all focused around community and youth development. I worked with the New Teacher Project, and they were doing work with Chicago public schools to staff their turnaround schools. And I supported those initiatives and eventually came on to Chicago public schools where I met my co-founders. And these were gentlemen who were my senior at the organization, very smart. We worked together, we enjoyed working together. And as those efforts were wrapping up in the turnaround schools, they presented me with an opportunity to come on board and participate in a tech startup. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know
Mm.
what that truly meant, but I trusted them and their intellect and their leadership so much that I felt at the time that there was no way I was going to pass up on the opportunity. So the work that we did initially was to determine if we could create an instrument or a battery, an assessment, an inventory of questions that you could deliver to teachers in the hiring phase before you even meet with them or interview them. And if you could give them this assessment and they take it and it tells you whether or not they can grow students. And that seems far fetched, but we undertook also a national research study, worked with data from NWA, had teachers who um, had taught those students. So we took their data. We had those teachers take our inventory of questions that we had item writers write. We looked at all of those responses. We brought in a psychometrician who ensured that the questions were valid and passed all of the metrics. And we found that there were about 100 predictive items. Once we found there was that predictability, we put them into a tool called the Educator's Professional Inventory. And we started selling that to school districts. And that was how I made my way into tech
Tech
startups.
startups. Wow. You mentioned that you found your co-founders and they led you into building a startup. Many people who want to lead don't really know how to follow. Do you think it's important to learn how to follow before you learn how to lead?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. Because um, in hindsight, and also adding to the work that I'm doing with founders now, it is impossible as I see it for founders to be able to see everything. There is an element of, I know you've built this product. I know you've built an expertise behind you to bring this idea and this product forward, but it's still impossible for us to see it all. So there has to be an element somewhere in there of humility to be able to take instruction from others, even though you may be the person who's leading, to take advice or to see another perspective. I think it's hugely important to both be the student and the teacher, depending on what the needs are, and never have too much ego that you can't be led or that you can't be corrected.
What would you say are key features to be surrounded by these type of people that will lead you in the right place and that have this mindset of learning when to lead and also when to follow?
True leaders don't even care about necessarily being called a leader. I think the characteristics that come out become listeners, people who are emotionally intelligent, people who can remain agnostic sometimes in terms of not being swayed by the emotion of the situation, more focused on the outcome and that being that North Star. Like, how are we going to improve or create or get to that goal, and less about who gets to take credit for it, or, some of those things that lead us away from true problem solving. So you want problem solvers, people, of course, who are smart, people who seek to build others up versus utilizing others, a giver versus a taker, but also a strategist. I mean, it is important for someone who can make clear decisions, who makes good decisions. You feel good about the decisions they make. There's nothing like a person who you hear speak and you resonate with them and you choose to say, you know what, I like that person so much and what they're saying, I would follow them. I mean, that is what a true leader is to me, when you make that determination. Like, you're not forced to follow this person, but you're like, I think that person could lead me. That's a
Yes.
real compliment.
Yes, that's true. And the other day I was listening to the video by YC Combinator where they gathered Mark Zuckerberg and some altmen, and some altmen asked Mark Zuckerberg what was his hiring strategy, and he said that he only hires people who he would work for. So I believe this has is pretty much what you are saying, that if you're gonna work with someone or if you're trying to do something, um, the people you work with have in some mindset um, be able to lead you. You have to learn how to follow those people that you're going to hire. They have to reach that capacity. Do you agree
That's
with?
right. I agree with that. Again, going back to the point where none of us can see everything. And so for
Yes.
founders, you want to seek expertise in something you don't have, which means you're going to have to trust people, which is also a huge component of making the determination that you want to follow someone. You trust that they can do the job, they can lead, but also that they'll take care of you. And
Hmm.
not in terms of like family, because I'm against saying that the workplace is like family, but in terms
Yes.
of they're going to treat you fairly. They're going to advocate for you when it's time. They'll make sure opportunities are available to you. They'll coach you and give you feedback, the things that really help us grow.
That's true. That's true. Um, I had a question. Do you believe that Chicago is a good place to start a business, and why?
Absolutely. Chicago is such a unique place in terms of its opportunity. Our landscape already lends to just the beautifulness of a vibrant city, a diverse ecosystem. While we are not, of course, the coast, and we're not California or New York, excuse me, in that direction, we have a community aspect about us that wants to bring people together, that wants to bring innovation to the city and wants to build together. I think that's one of the key components about Chicago. It's a big city, but
Hmm.
it's still very intermingled in terms of the different entities, organizations, et cetera, that build that tech ecosystem. And I see more and more the entities are coming together, which means
Yes.
that the opportunities can be further centralized, which means that we can increase access to innovation and to funding opportunities, and just for people to consider entrepreneurship
Hmm.
in Chicago generally. You can look up and you can find resources and events and um, people who will pour into you. And I think that's an interesting part about the Chicago tech ecosystem. Of course, then there's the quantum and the new building in progress right now, and just a lot of initiatives coming in around quantum computing, AI, health tech, fintech. Can't forget fintech. So
Yes.
yes, there's quite a bit happening where people should take a look at Chicago and decrease cost to build here.
Yeah. And something I've noticed, getting back to the AI collective that you mentioned earlier, Krystal and I are members of the AI collective chapter, which bridges the gap between humanity and AI. And what we mostly do is organize events. And in these events, at least I, get to kind of always see the same people, and I see them often, and every time I speak with them, they have built something new for the community. There's there's people building new collectives, people building new events, new help sessions. Everyone wants to help everyone in this ecosystem. So it's like if you reach out, people will take you and they will help you. You just need to reach out. And getting back
I
to
agree with that.
your first business, how would you say Chicago reached out to you? What resources from the city did you use? And do you think other people could use for their startups or businesses right now?
I think that first startup was a unique experience in terms of there was already funding aligned to it. There was a period of time where we were unfunded, so there were several months. Um, but the way in which the other two co-founders had developed the idea, they did so on nights and weekends. So as we came into it, there was already sort of this framework for what they wanted to do. Of course, nothing was built. That was a time, though, when funding was easier to achieve and you could get funded from your idea before you even had a beta. So there were a lot of things that just came together at that time to make that a really successful venture. And um, I'd say my co-founders probably did more of the identification of the resources and the fundraising. My role was primarily, operations and our early research study, that national study, getting that organized prior to customers, getting our marketing outreach and all of those things organized. So I was kind of insulated in that initial. I did spend time with our VC firm once we were funded, and I got to see that angle and that side of things. But I've not seen, or let me rephrase, now today, the work that I am doing, I get to see all of this in action in real time. And, I have my hand in these different areas and I'm going to these different entities and participating in the programs in a way that I know I didn't have to do back when because it was already so organized for us. There are the resources that I think folks should identify today for founders. First, align them with what your startup is focused on. You have Matter that does health tech, for example, 1871 that focuses on fintech and SaaS, and you've got MHub that focuses on the physical creation of products. Um, it's pretty easy once you know what you're doing to then go find the resources and community organizations who can support. Today, there's 1 million cups. Today, there's Founders Institute, Founder Fridays, Founders Therapy. There are a lot of resources there for solopreneurs, for co-founder teams. It's there if you know where to look. And I think that's part of what I'm trying to do. For example, with Chicago startup events, centralize resources, centralize events, centralize how people can access so more people can access.
Yes, yeah, that's completely true. It's very important to give this information to the people, which is why I mainly started this podcast. Um, because sometimes you have a hard time finding the resources.
Definitely.
So I think it's important for someone to bring them to you, to your face, so you can grab them. On that topic, I spoke with the CEO of 1871. Hopefully she'll schedule a meeting with the podcast soon. So if you're
I
into
hope so
fintech,
too.
she'd be great to have. She's been the CEO of 1871 for 7 years, I believe, right? So
That's right.
she's been a long time there.
Betsy is, I've seen her speak multiple times. Don't have a personal relationship with her. We see each other and we speak. But from what I can tell, I find her to be highly credible and definitely focused on bringing innovation, that stigma to Chicago, to let people know we're building. It seems quiet sometimes, but I went to 1871's Momentum Awards just about a week and a half ago, and there's no doubt that many founders are always building. They had different levels of awards, some of the newcomers and some that have been building for over a decade and have built huge businesses and brought all sorts of innovation, jobs, funds, et cetera, to the city. And she'll be able to articulate the massive impact
Mhm.
not only 1871 has had, but just that's happening across the city at the different ecosystem enablers.
Yeah, that's right. Also, to shout out UIC, the CEO of MHub is a UIC alumni too. I discovered that
I did not
yesterday.
know that.
So
That's awesome.
hopefully
Shout out
UIC
Flames.
can, yeah, hopefully UIC can help me reach out to him and we can bring him here so he can tell us more about MHub. It's a one you've been to MHub, right, Krystal? It's a wonderful place. It's
Definitely.
yeah, it's full of possibilities, full of ideas, full of opportunities. And
Absolutely.
there's many good things we've covered so far, but I want to learn about the setbacks and the failures you've experienced. I feel that it's more, it's way more important to focus on how to overcome failure than how to handle success. So could you
Any
guide me through that?
particular context, just
Um,
in business ventures?
yes, in business ventures.
I mean, there's always those moments that you wish you could have done more, done better, or knew a different perspective even to act on. What I'm thankful and grateful about is that the startups that I've worked in, they've all progressed. So I don't have a story where, overall the business failed or we weren't able to achieve that goal. But of course, within there are moments when maybe we lost a big client. And those really come down though to the internal dynamics of a company. And once you start building and growing and scaling, whether or not you have the true alignment between those key org functions, I think that's where some of the mistakes and missteps happen for startups. Early on, I think one of the bigger mistakes could be building before you truly have identified a customer who would pay for this solution because it addresses a key pain point. I definitely see that more often than you think, even though I know founders are told, do research and make sure that you are talking to potential customers before you code that first piece of code, et cetera. But that's still pretty prevalent. And then as you grow and scale, particularly SaaS, I think it's key to have connection between sales, customer success, and product. When I worked in startups, I think that's where I saw some of the biggest opportunities for improvement. You get sales who may oversell, which is it's typical. There's a threshold for that in startups. But if that gets exacerbated, now you have new customers who get handed over to customer success who are now looking for these features that either aren't on the roadmap or so far down the roadmap that it doesn't provide that ROI they were looking for. Similarly, between customer success and product, once we hear from our customers that they're looking for these things, we're relying on product to be able to work with engineering and deliver those things in a timely format. And when sales and CS and product are on different pages, it's going to show to the customer. And so when we talk about retention and ability to grow and scale, you got to keep your customers, which means they have to feel that the value is being delivered and that the ROI is returning from the funds that they've secured to pay for your product.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I agree with you. Um, what would you say is the most important piece of advice you ever received in your life, and who said it to you, or where did you hear it?
That's difficult.
Or
Okay,
maybe
let me
something
see.
that life has taught you along the way that you you always think about when you're pushing your new business or pushing a startup? What drives you? What is there a phrase, word, some situation that you just remember all the time and you feel like, okay, I have to win. I have to make this happen because I have to do that.
Okay, there's a couple of things. One thing I tell my children is that life is cumulative. And I say that because you'll get so many different experiences. And sometimes we get down on ourselves that perhaps we aren't having the experiences we want. And at that time, we could be learning a key lesson that's going to drive something forward in the future that we just don't know. So definitely take on all experiences, and that's a way to pour into yourself and ensure that you're future proofing yourself because you're getting that perspective. And about winning, the way I feel, I don't want to be better than anyone else. I just want to be better than where I am right now. And I feel I have the skills and the abilities. And so I feel pressure from myself to continue using them to sort of maximize myself. And as long as I'm learning and continuing to sort of iterate and ratchet up each time, I feel good. If I'm ever staying in the same place too long, I'm not happy. And I'm looking for ways to keep learning and to keep applying my skill set in big ways to big problems.
That's true. It's important to be better than yourself, not better than anyone else.
Exactly.
Before we finish up, is there any project, any business you would like to talk about that you have made that made you proud or that makes you proud or that you believe that people could take helpful advice from?
Um,
Maybe Crystal View
def-
Consulting. Oh, sorry, Clearview Consulting.
oh, for sure, Clearview Consulting. Again, it makes me think about life as cumulative. And I've had really great experiences with really great people. So, from all of the earlier work with the first startup and then moving into the startup that purchased us at the time, and then later on into law enforcement tech, I've just been really grateful to have the sort of understanding and learnings that I know probably 95% of people won't get to experience real time, which has enabled me to now be confident enough to have my own consulting firm as Clearview Consulting, to be confident enough to talk to founders and help them in these early phases. And also with Chicago startup events to continue pouring forward into founders and making sure there are opportunities for them to be visible and sort of the event coordination and accumulation in one place. So it's a little simpler for them to get access. So, yes, definitely proud of Clearview Consulting, growing, small but growing. And I'm excited. I think that's the best part about it. I look forward to the conversations with founders and helping them figure out how to move to the next stage of growth or even just what that next best step is for them in the moment.
So yeah, I look, Clearview Consulting is a very exciting business. So I'm gonna definitely be looking into that. And one last thing before we will leave, I I always see quotes of people like on books, on wallpapers, on whatever, and it's truly inspiring. But few times I can get to quote people I know. So what I'm gonna be doing for this series of podcasts is at the end of the show, I'm gonna ask each of the guests to make an own personal quote. So it's your words so that people can quote you. So you get to deliver a piece of advice or message that's personal for you, from you to others. And I know this might be last minute for you, Crystal. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before, but I believe it makes it feel more real, maybe in some sense.
Okay.
So if you could wrap up the podcast with a final quote, statement, advice, whatever you choose, however you want it, I'd be grateful. And thank you for being a guest in the podcast in this podcast. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you, thank you for supporting Chicago, and just thank you for everything, Krystal. I hope everything goes well with you, all your uh, businesses, projects, everything. And it was lovely to have you. So,
Thank you for that. I think one of the things that stuck with me over this time because it's been such an interesting journey. I couldn't have charted it out or mapped it out. And I always say, enjoy the journey, enjoy the experiences. There is no wasted experience, and the future favors the curious. So, as long as you're continuously learning, continuously curious, and really challenging yourself to be better, you're going to win.